You still run the same neighborhood. Every morning, same route, same streets, same cracked pavement you've known since you were old enough to walk on it alone. People think when you make it, you move immediately. New neighborhood, new environment, new everything. But you read enough to know better. You don't buy your lifestyle with money. You let your assets generate the money to buy the lifestyle. Until then, you stay. You observe. You build. So every morning you run these same streets with your headphones in and the music loud enough to drown out everything that isn't moving forward. This morning feels like every other morning. It isn't. You're maybe 2 kilometers into the run when you feel it. Someone behind you. Not close enough to be a threat, but deliberate. Matching your pace. You keep moving. Music loud. Eyes forward. Then louder. Closer. You pull one headphone out. Bro! You don't stop. Bro. You look back, and you know this face immediately. Not because you stayed in contact. Because some faces you just don't forget. The faces that were there when you were at the bottom. The faces that laughed. He's breathing hard from the sprint to catch you. Hands on his knees. Looking up at you with an expression you weren't expecting. Not arrogance. Need. Steve, you say. He straightens up. You remember me? Yeah, I remember you. You glance at your watch. Meeting in 45 minutes across town. You look back at him. Am I disturbing you? You going somewhere? It's fine, you say. What's up? And he says the words that would have meant something different to you 2 years ago. Bro, I need your help. You almost laugh. Not cruelly. It just rises in you before you can stop it. This same person. These same streets. A few years ago you were the joke on these streets. The kid working in his grandmother's bar while everyone else was outside. The one they laughed at for smelling like the bar when you came to school. The one nobody called when they were planning anything because you were already seen as less before you even had a chance to prove otherwise. And now he's standing in front of you breathing hard because he ran to catch up with you. What kind of help, you ask? Anything, bro. A job. Anything. He pauses. We hear you're the big boss now. You look at him. The big boss. Where did you hear that? Everyone knows, bro. The whole area knows. You shake your head slowly. I'm not a boss. I'm just trying like everyone else. Bro, don't lie to me. You look at him properly. Really look at him. The eyes. The skin. The way he's holding himself. You've seen enough people at enough levels to read what you're seeing. You know what the money will be used for. You know it won't help him the way he thinks it will. But you also know what it felt like to need something and have nobody extend a hand. Give me your number. The water runs, and you think about Steve's eyes and what was behind them, and you think about the gap between where you are and where you started, and how that gap is supposed to feel like victory. But sometimes it just feels like distance. You turn the water off. You dry off. Your phone lights up on the bathroom counter. A number you don't have saved. You stare at it. You know whose number it is. You let it ring out. Dave comes over at noon, your friend. Your real one. The one who stood next to you at the bottom when standing next to you cost him something. The lawnmower. The doors. The rejections. The small wins. He was there for all of it. He's not where he is because of you. You want to be clear about that even in your own mind. Dave made his own way, his own decisions, his own sacrifices. You just happened to be doing the same thing at the same time, and you pushed each other without making it a competition. That's rare. You don't take it for granted. You drive to the meeting together. Talk the whole way, not about money, about everything else, about where things are going, about what comes next, about the neighborhood and the people in it and the ones who made it and the ones who didn't. You laugh more in that car ride than you have all week. You come back to your house at 4 p.m. The door is open. Not unlocked. Open. You sit down against the wall in the middle of your empty living room, and you pull your knees up, and you sit there in the silence of a space that used to be yours, and you feel something settle over you that isn't quite anger and isn't quite sadness. It's clarity. So this is what money does. People who didn't see you now see you. People who didn't need you now need you. People who never came to your door now come through it and take everything behind it. You sit there for a long time, not crying, just understanding. You think about Steve's eyes this morning. You think about the money you sent without expecting it back. You wonder. Then you stop wondering because wondering doesn't change anything, and you learned a long time ago that the only direction that matters is forward. You call Dave. Tell him what happened. He goes quiet for a moment. Then, where are you going to go? Somewhere else, you say. Somewhere nobody knows which door is mine. That night you sleep at Dave's. In the morning you start looking. New neighborhood, new building. Somewhere the address isn't common knowledge on the streets you grew up on. Somewhere you can think without the weight of being known everywhere you walk. You find a place within a week. You move with less than you started with in terms of objects, but with more than you've ever had in terms of clarity. The bar smells the same as it always has, like wood and warmth and decades of the same routine running so deep, it became the walls themselves, the particular light that comes through the windows in the late afternoon. There is something about this place that no amount of money has been able to replicate. Not comfort exactly, something older than comfort, continuity. "Grandma," you say, "I want to buy you a house." She doesn't stop what she's doing. "You can stop running this place. I can take care of everything, every month, whatever you need." She looks at you then, really looks at you. The same look she gave you the day you asked to join her behind the counter, reading something in your face that you can't read yourself.
"This bar fed your mother," she says.
"Before your mother could feed herself, it fed me. It fed my mother before me." "I know." "You know the name on the sign?" "Yes." "That name doesn't move," she says, simply. Finally, like she's stating a fact about the weather, you sit with that. "I'm not trying to erase it," you say. "I just don't want you to have to work anymore." "Work is not something that happens to me," she says. "It's something I do. There's a difference." You don't have an answer for that. So you sit there and you drink what she put in front of you, and you watch her move, and you understand something that none of the books you've read have been able to teach you. Some things aren't problems to be solved. Some things just are. And loving them means letting them be. You're sitting at the bar an hour later when your phone lights up on the counter. The same unsaved number. Your grandmother's eyes go to it before you can turn it over. She reads something in the name that appears, something in your face when you see it, and she doesn't say anything immediately. She dries a glass, sets it down, picks up another one. "Who is that?" she says finally. "Nobody." She doesn't push. But she knows. She has always known things without being told them. It's something about the way she watches people. Decades behind a bar teaches you to read what people aren't saying better than what they are. The phone stops ringing, starts again almost immediately. You decline it again. She sets down the glass she's drying, and she looks at you, and this time the look is different. Not the businesswoman behind the counter. Something older. Something that has been waiting for the right moment. "Sit with me," she says. She folds her hands on the counter the way she does when she's about to say something that matters, and she tells you. Your mother was 17, not careless, not reckless, just 17 in the way that 17 happens before you understand what it means. Your father was older, not by much, but enough to know that what they had was real and also that the timing was wrong. He wanted to wait, wanted her to grow, wanted to do it properly when the ground was more solid under both of them. But waiting has a cost too. Things shifted. The way things shift when two people are trying to hold something together from different distances. Your mother moved forward in one direction, your father in another. By the time either of them looked back, the distance was already too large for either of them to cross comfortably. He went to another town. Your mother built a new life, a real one. The bar hums around you, familiar and constant. "He's been calling," you say. "I know." "Why now?" She looks at you. You know why. You do know. You've known since the first call. People reappear when the weather changes, when what was once nothing becomes something. It's not unique to fathers. It's just human. The question isn't why he's calling. The question is what you do with it. Just the quiet of a neighborhood that doesn't know your name yet. You look at the phone for a long time. Then you answer. He speaks first. Of course he does. He has things prepared. You can hear it in the first few sentences. Words that were organized before this call happened. An apology that sounds like it was practiced. You let him finish. Then you say, "I hear you." Not "I forgive you." Not "it's okay." Not "we're fine now." Just, "I hear you." Because that's the honest answer. You heard him. You received the words. What you do with them is going to take longer than one phone call to figure out, and you are done pretending to feel things faster than you actually feel them just to make other people comfortable. "Can we meet?" he asks. "Not yet," you say. Silence. "Okay," he says. "Whenever you're ready." You end the call. You sit in the car for another 10 minutes doing nothing. You're driving home 1 hour later when the message comes. "Dave." "Bro, what are you up to?" You stop at a red light and look at the message, and something hits you that you weren't expecting. How many times has this man checked on you? How many times has he been the one to call, to show up, to sit with you in the middle of whatever was happening without making it about himself? You've been so deep inside your own story, the grandmother, your father, the robbery, the move, that you haven't stopped once to ask about his. The light turns green. You type back, "Meet me at the spot." Now. The spot is on the hill on the east side of the city. You found it when you were 16. Two boys who thought differently from everyone around them, needing somewhere to think without being laughed at. You used to come here with nothing, no money, no plan. Just the city spread out below you and the feeling that one day you were going to be part of it in a way that mattered. You're here now. Dave pulls up 5 minutes after you, gets out, stands next to you, looks out at the city the way he always has, hands in his pockets, quiet first, that's always been him. Patient where you were restless, still where you were moving. How are you, you ask? I'm good. Nah. You look at him. How are you actually? He glances at you sideways. Don't do that, you say. Don't be good with me. I'm asking for real. What's going on with you? What's happening in your life right now? He's quiet for a moment. Then he laughs once, short. The kind of laugh that isn't really about something being funny. You know how it is, he says. Tell me anyway. And he does. It comes out slowly at first, then faster. The way things come out when someone has been holding them for a while and finally gets permission to put them down. The relatives. The ones who never called. The ones who were invisible for years when he was grinding. Who didn't show up when things were hard and hope was the only currency he had. Who are now calling regularly, consistently, with needs that arrive wrapped in family language so that saying no feels like betrayal. We're family. You have it now. How can you say no to family? He looks at the city. How is that fair? He says, not angry, just genuinely asking. Where were they? You know where they were. I know where they were. But now I'm supposed to feel guilty for not giving what I bled for to people who weren't there when I was bleeding. You nod, because you know this feeling in your own bones. The people who reappear when the weather changes. The old classmates on the corner. The father calling after years of silence. The ones who laughed at you for being different now needing you because you were. It costs, you say. Yeah, he says. It costs. You both stand there with the city below you and the weight of that truth between you. Then Dave looks at you and something in his face shifts. Something that's been underneath everything this whole conversation. But bro, he says. Yeah. You remember the lawnmower. You laugh before you can stop it. Real laughter. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and old. Door to door, you say. Door to door, he repeats, shaking his head. Bro, we were out here knocking on strangers' doors asking if they wanted their grass cut. Getting rejected back to back. Back to back to back. And then one person said yes. One person. He holds up a finger. One. And we acted like we won something. We did win something. He looks at you. We did, you say again, more serious now. That one, yes. That was the beginning of everything. You think about being 16. The two of you in a world that was moving in a direction neither of you wanted to go. Friends who thought you were strange for reading financial books instead of doing what 16-year-olds do. Who called you boring for not spending money you didn't have on clothes you didn't need to impress people who wouldn't matter. You didn't party. You didn't follow. You sat with books and ideas and the uncomfortable feeling of wanting something you couldn't name yet, but could feel the shape of. And the only other person in your world who understood that feeling without needing it explained was standing right next to you. Dave. More disciplined than you. More patient. Sometimes too patient. The kind of patience that could tip into waiting so long the moment passes. That was his edge. The thing that held him back at certain points when moving was the only answer. You were the opposite. Impatient. Always moving. Sometimes too fast. Spending before you should. Acting before you thought. Burning through money the moment it arrived because something in you confused movement with progress. Separately, you were both incomplete. Together you filled the gaps. Neither of you ever said it out loud. You didn't need to. It just worked the way things work when two people are actually aligned underneath all the surface noise. The day he stopped being too patient was the day everything changed for him. The day you started being disciplined was the day everything changed for you. Not because of luck, because of each other. We used to talk about things up here, Dave says, looking out at the city. Back then, things our friends had never even thought about. They thought we were crazy. They thought we were boring. Same thing to them. He smiles. You remember Bernard telling us we needed to live a little while we were reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad? At 16, you both laugh, properly this time. The kind that fills the space around you and then settles into something quieter, something grateful. 90% of our age mates, you say. We were already ahead of 90% of them, and we didn't even know it. We knew, Dave says. We just didn't know we knew. You think about that. He's right. You knew. That's why you kept going, even when people laughed, even when the books felt like they were written for a life you couldn't access yet, even when the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be felt so large that wanting felt almost arrogant. You knew. And you kept going anyway. The city sits below you unchanged. Same lights, same movement, same noise that never fully stops. But you are not who you were the last time you stood here with nothing.
It's worth it,
Dave says finally. Not to convince you. Just to say it out loud. To put it in the air between you as a fact that both of you can stand on. Yeah, you say. The pressure. The relatives. The people who appear. All of it. All of it, you agree. Better than broke. Better than door to door. Better than one yes from a stranger feeling like salvation. You look at him. We made it, bro, you say. Not loudly. Not like a celebration. Just like the truth. Simple and clean and completely real. He nods. We made it. You stay up there for a while longer. Not talking about business. Not talking about strategy or systems or the next move. Just two people who found each other early enough to matter. Who filled each other's gaps without being asked to. Who built something real from a lawnmower and a hill and a refusal to become what everyone around them expected. When you finally drive home, the city is quieter. Your phone has messages. Your father's name sits in your notifications unanswered. Your grandmother's bar is somewhere across the city doing what it has always done. The new apartment is waiting, empty in a new way. Not the emptiness of being robbed, the emptiness of a beginning. A clean space with no history yet. Ready for whatever comes next. You park outside. Sit in the car for a moment. Think about 16-year-old you on that hill with a book and a friend and a feeling you couldn't name but couldn't ignore. You figured it out. Not perfectly. Not without cost. But you figured it out. You go back to the bar on a Sunday. Your grandmother is behind the counter. Of course she is. You sit on your stool and she puts your glass in front of you without asking, and the afternoon light comes through the windows exactly the way it always has. You answered him, she says. Yes. And? We'll see. She nods, satisfied with that, not pushing for more. You sit there in the warmth of the place that raised you when everything else fell away, the place that fed you when feeding yourself wasn't guaranteed, the place that showed you before any book or podcast or business deal that showing up consistently to something you believe in is the foundation of everything. You look at your grandmother moving behind her counter, unhurried, unshaken, completely herself. And you understand something you couldn't have understood at the beginning of all this. She was the first thing you ever watched that worked. Not a system, not a strategy, a person showing up every day. Building something that outlasts the person who built it. You've been trying to do the same thing this whole time. You just didn't recognize the teacher. Outside, the neighborhood keeps moving. New faces on old corners. Somewhere out there, a teenager is reading a book their friends think is boring. Thinking thoughts their friends think are strange. Wanting things their friends think are unrealistic. They don't know what it costs yet. They don't know that the climb changes you before it rewards you. They don't know that the people who disappear when you have nothing and reappear when you have something are one of the oldest tests there is. They don't know that the grandmother who won't sell the bar is teaching them something more valuable than any asset class. They don't know that the friend who shows up on a hill and tells you the truth is worth more than any deal you will ever close. They don't know any of it yet. But they will. You did. You check your phone. Messages. Numbers. Movement. The system running the way systems run when you've built them properly. You put the phone face down on the bar counter. Pick up your glass. And for the first time in a long time you sit in a moment without calculating what it's worth. It's worth everything. And nothing had to be bought to make it that way. Some people have money. Some people have people. If you're lucky, really lucky, you have both. And you know the difference between the ones who were there and the ones who arrived after. That difference is everything. Hold the ones who were there. Hold them like the asset they are.